It's been a very long day in Parliament for all the parliamentarians, for the minister as well. They've been talking about it's all about the mid-year budget review, and we've spoken a lot about it. Well, for those of you who missed out, we're going to give you highlight of what has changed as far as Ghana's budget is concerned, and then we run you by what stories have been running during the day. Like I said, you hear from Nancy Pelosi, you also hear from the Defend Media Freedom campaign. Right now, though, let's give you the highlight of what happened in Parliament. I spoke to you earlier in the headline about how much you'll be paying for communication service tax. It's all about the calls you make, the text messages you send. Here is Minister Ken Ofori-Atta speaking earlier in Parliament about why we have to pay more for communication, for the communication service tax.
Communication service tax. The communication service tax was introduced in 2008 at an ad valorem rate of 6%. The tax is levied on charges payable by consumers for the use of communication services. Government proposed to increase the tax. Government proposed to increase the tax to 9% to develop the foundation for the creation of a viable technology ecosystem in the country from 6%. This will comprise, among others, putting in systems to identify and combat cybercrime, protect users of information technology, and combat money laundering and other financial crimes. The increase will not be earmarked, however. The sharing ratio will be adjusted in such a manner that the National Youth Employment Program continue to receive the same proportion as they are currently receiving.
Ken Ofori-Atta there announcing the review of the communication service tax from 6 to 9%. What it essentially means is that for the mobile phone calls that you make, for the text messages that you send, for the WhatsApp messages that you send, anything communication, you are going to have to be paying extra for that. Already we're paying 6%. Now we're paying 3% extra. So, you know, you're paying 9% for communication service tax. Well, he spoke about the luxury vehicle tax. It was a very controversial one when it was introduced in Parliament the last time he came to speak about it. And there has been strong opposition. In fact, there have been several calls for a scrap or removal, or actually they called for a review of that luxury tax. If you have a vehicle that's 3.0 engine size, then you're going to pay extra. Well, that was fought especially by vehicle sellers, and there was a massive demonstration here in Accra. Well, here is the news that the minister presented in Parliament today.
Government in 2018 introduced the luxury vehicles levy to raise revenue. We have noted suggestions from the general public on the implementation of this tax, and Mr. Speaker, as a listening government, we are proposing to the House the withdrawal of the luxury tax levy. We will, Mr. Speaker. We will, Mr. Speaker, continue. We will, Mr. Speaker, continue to improve compliance, expand the tax nets, and explore other innovative sources of raising revenue. The Energy Sector Levies Act 2015, Act 899, restructured, rationalized, and consolidated all the revenue legislation relating to the energy sector into one law. The object was to dedicate the levies to the energy sector and to promote prudent and efficient utilization of the revenue, as well as facilitate sustainable long-term investments in the energy sector to enhance availability, regularity, and reliability of supply. The dedication of these consolidated levies was to improve the poor balance sheets of the power sector utilities and relieve government of the pressures of the sector in terms of reduced reliance on Ministry of Finance occasional direct funding. The sector, however, continues to be exposed due to the recurring debts and the inherited take-or-pay contracts. At the inception of the Act, it was estimated that approximately 24% of the expand price of fuel will adequately cover the required financing. This percentage has dwindled over the years and is currently about 17% due to inflation and currency depreciation. With this mid-year review, Mr. Speaker, government is proposing an upward adjustment in the road fund levy, the energy debt recovery levy, and the price stabilization and recovery levy to bring the ratios close to 21% to help bridge the financing requirements.
Mr. Speaker, about the luxury tax and the fact that it has been removed. He says it's a glistening government, and so they've heard the calls for people, from people for it to be scrapped. So it has been scrapped. You also heard him talk on the back of that about the energy sector levies, which he says on the back of that he speaks about the review of PPAs, etc. But he's also mentioned the fact that there's excess generation, excess power generation. Essentially, we're paying for power that we're not using. And he says that based on that, government is taking some very strong stance. They're reviewing a lot of PPAs, unsolicited PPAs will not be tolerated. He also says that those currently being negotiated are all going to be halted. Listen to the minister put all of this together.
Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the significant progress we have made so far, the serious challenges we are facing in the energy sector pose grave financial risk to the whole economy. At the heart of these challenges are the obnoxious take-or-pay contracts signed by the NDC, which obligate us to pay for capacity we do not need. Currently, according to the Energy Commission, our installed capacity of over 5,000 megawatts is almost double our peak demand of around 2,700 megawatts. Notably, 2,300 megawatts of the installed capacity has been contracted on a take-or-pay basis. This means that we are contractually, Mr. Speaker, obliged to throw away money for this excess capacity which we do not consume. This has resulted in us paying over $500 million of over 2.5 billion annually for power generation capacity that we do not need. Similarly, for gas, Ghana has contracted for around 750 million scf per day by 2023. This is even after this government terminated 2 other LNG contracts in 2017. Current demand is around 250 million scf per day, and this is projected to rise to between 450 and 550 million scf per day by 2023. About 640 million scf of the contracted gas supply is on a take-or-pay basis, Mr. Speaker, meaning we have to pay whether we use it or not. From 2020, if nothing is done, we'll be facing annual excess capacity charges of between $550 million and $850 million every year. Thankfully, Mr. Speaker, we have a plan to deal with this. Mr. Speaker, we cannot allow this situation to continue. There is no doubt that the situation in the energy sector is shocking the economy. We are in a state of emergency and must therefore respond with urgency and boldness. We shall, from August 1st, 2019, Mr. Speaker, with the support of Parliament, make take-or-pay contracts a beast of the past.
Well, that's not the only reforms or not the only measure being put in place to deal with the energy sector challenges. You hear the minister again about what reforms are being implemented to heal the energy sector.
Our top technical experts, assisted by counterparts from the World Bank, have subjected the energy sector to a thorough analysis and produced the Energy Sector Reform Program, which identifies the key issues in the sector and proposes solutions. According to the ESRP, which has been approved by Cabinet, if we continue with business as usual in the energy sector, the cost to government will increase over time to an accumulated total of over $12.5 billion by 2023. Mr. Speaker, Our macroeconomic stability and the hard-earned economic gains we have made are at serious risk of being derailed if we do not immediately take drastic steps to arrest these reprehensible legacy issues in the energy sector. Just to put this in context, the over $1 billion equivalent extraordinary payment that government is having to make in the energy sector this year and on an ongoing basis, if not addressed, is more than 2 times the amount of all government social expenditure on goods and services, which includes 3 SHS, our school feeding program, our LEAP program. It is no wonder, therefore, that the NDC was convinced that we could not fund President Akufo-Addo's 3 SHS program, but the Lord has found a way for this nation. Mr. Speaker, in addition, these wasteful expenditures in the energy sector are one of the main causes of increases in end-user electricity tariffs, imposing hardships on Ghanaians. Similarly, these tariffs makes Ghana uncompetitive for manufacturing, thus holding back our industrialization and job creation agenda. What is more, these wasteful payments are putting pressure on our foreign currency reserves and on the exchange rate. Mr. Speaker, in investment banking parlance, the NDC government's parting shot was an energy sector poison pill. But, Mr. Speaker, we are determined that the good people of Ghana will not drink this hemlock. Mr. Speaker, we cannot allow this situation to continue. There is no doubt that the situation in the energy sector is shocking the economy and creating a state of emergency. And indeed, as in the case of what we have done in the financial sector, we must respond with the urgency and boldness dictated by the situation. Consequently, Mr. Speaker, government has resolved as follows: to convert all take-or-pay contracts to take-and-pay contracts. Accordingly, starting August 1st, 2019, government is to pay for energy and gas that we actually consume. All take-or-pay contracts will be renegotiated to convert to take-and-pay for both PPAs and gas supply agreements. Government will seek, of course, Mr. Speaker, parliamentary ratification where appropriate. We have resolved, Mr. Speaker, to suspend indefinitely or terminate all PPAs currently under negotiation, to immediately place a complete moratorium on signing new PPAs and put-call option agreements, to subject all future PPAs to competitive and transparent procurement procedures. Government will therefore no longer entertain any unsolicited proposals, to implement the economic merit order dispatch, which means that the most efficient power plants will be dispatched first, to improve the performance of the distribution utility, and we have agreed with the concessionaire a plan to reduce electricity losses and increase collections based on an agreed investment plan, to also significantly shift in the medium term the energy mix to gas and renewables.
So essentially, we're putting in a lot of money in the energy sector, whereas it has implications for the economy. And closely linked to that sector, of course, is the economy, as the minister has said. Well, he admits to economic challenges that the country has faced, but says that work is going on tirelessly to deal with these economic challenges.
In line with our objective of building a strong economy for jobs and prosperity, government outlined a number of priority projects for the 2019 budget. They include maintaining macroeconomic stability, modernizing agriculture, provision of efficient infrastructure, industrialization, private sector growth and entrepreneurship, social intervention policies, and financial sector cleanup. I'm happy to announce that these priority projects are on, and we are delivering on the real change that Ghanaians voted so massively for in December 2016. In the last 31 months, Mr. Speaker, year after year, budget after budget, together with the active support of the people and businesses, we are building a confident, stronger, and ambitious economy. The shared progress that we are making is real, And the credit for this success is, in fact, a shared one with the people we are elected to lead, serve, and obey. However, Mr. Speaker, it must be stressed that we continue to face serious risks and challenges which we must, with the support of the people, tackle head-on, because these risks and challenges combine to slow our efforts to improve with urgency, depth, and discipline the lives of our people, especially in the provision of public and social infrastructure such as roads, community housing, schools, clinics, water, and electricity. We believe that the accelerated progress which the people of Ghana desire and deserve will be better served if these risks and challenges are neutralized.
So the three key things that, have linkages that are intertwined as far as the country's sustainable or sustainability is concerned, the energy sector, the economy, and closely linked to the economy is the banking sector. The minister points to what he calls massive failures brought about by several years of unsustainable licensing regime, which he says lowered the standards of entry into the banking and SDI sector, as well as poor supervision and enforcement from the central bank are some of the problems that plague the banking sector, which also affected the economy. But he says that now, with the cleanup exercise done by the central bank, the banking system is robust.
All key indicators for building a stronger economy are being effectively and are stronger now than they were 30 months ago. Inflation has dropped to single digits and dropping. Interest rates continue to drop. External payment position has strengthened. Exchange rates have been more stable. The fiscal deficit has reduced to below 5%. Real GDP growth has rebounded and remains robust. Debt to GDP ratio is below 60%. The banking sector has been rescued and recapitalized. Mr. Speaker, as a result of bold and decisive measures we took to fix the banking crisis, our banks are stronger and richer, and with the cost of borrowing dropping, banks can and should therefore do a lot more to support the growth and expansion of business, which will create more jobs under the stable environment that has been provided by government for that exercise. Mr. Speaker, we recall the last time the MPP was in government, a government in which you, Mr. Speaker, served with pride and distinction. Our financial sector expanded considerably. It was under President J.A. Kufuor that we saw increases in the number of banks. The sector became competitive, with banks chasing ordinary workers with loan offers. This resulted in one of the highest average GDP growth rates in our country's history. We know that the foundation for growing businesses and creating jobs everywhere is a vibrant, well-governed, well-resourced, competitive financial services sector operating under a stable economic regime. That is why we could not watch the sector collapsing, even if it meant slowing down for a year or so on some of our own scheduled programs. In the recovery process, we managed to set up the Consolidated Bank Ghana Limited and capitalize it with 450 million Ghana cedis. Just this month, CBG has released funds totaling 430 million to Cocoa Board for Cocoa Roads. We provided funding of 11.2 billion, Mr. Speaker, to secure depositors' fund in the failed banks. The Ghana Amalgamated Trust, has provided funds to capitalize solvent indigenous banks that were struggling to meet the enhanced minimum paid-up capital of 400 million cedis.
So how much more is needed as supplementary for this budget? Hear him.
As a result of these revisions to the 2019 fiscal framework, the 2019 appropriation of 78,771,833,602.12 cedis that was approved by this August House in November 2018 will not be adequate to cater for the additional program needs, which would increase the total appropriation to 85,142,189,527.4 cedis. Government is therefore requesting honorable members to consider and approve an amount of 6,375,925.82 million cedis as supplementary estimates to the original appropriation of 708,771,833,602.12 million to bring the revised total appropriation for the 2019 fiscal year to 85.1 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, consistent with Article 179(8) of the Constitution, the request for a supplementary estimate is necessitated by additional precautionary expenditures in response to regional security developments and the amortization of contingent liabilities associated with take-or-pay contracts in the energy sector which have crystallized.
That's a lot of billions and millions and cedis and pesos. But the point is, bottom line, which is the crux of the matter really, is that he's requesting for over 6 billion more, 6 billion cedis more to supplement the budget that we had earlier. 6 billion more, essentially.